Welcome to Casey Cares. We're the voice of Kansas City nonprofits. We share the stories of local nonprofits and the individuals who drive them. At Casey Cares, we connect the nonprofit and business sectors to enhance the quality of life here in Kansas City for both our residents and our visitors. This Casey Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. In Kansas City, more than 6,000 men, women, and children are living with the impact of HIV and AIDS, and more than 100 of them are young people between the ages of 13 and 24. Those numbers matter, but behind every number is a real person, a real story, a real need for compassion and support. For more than 30 years, the AIDS Service Foundation of Greater Kansas City has been showing up for that community and our community, working to eliminate stigma, ease the suffering, and stop the spread of HIV and AIDS. As a leader in this fight, the foundation doesn't do this work alone. It provides critical education and financial resources to 4 local organizations that are on the front lines every day, directly supporting those most impacted. Well, today, we're joined by the foundation's Director of Development, Brandon Woodard, who can tell us all about the organization's efforts and how you can be engaged with their work. Brandon, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're absolutely delighted to have you. I do want to share that this man is a busy man. He is not only with the AIDS Service Foundation, but he's also a state representative in Kansas. So just right off the bat, I want to ask, how the heck do you manage all of this crazy?
Well, I'm a stereotypical Virgo, Ruth. So that means I really love time management. I live by my calendar. If it's not there, it's not happening. And my 8th year in the Kansas House of Representatives. And so I've learned to really balance both the State House world while we're in session from January through the end of March, and balance that with the day-to-day job as well. I've been with the AIDS Service Foundation for a couple of years now, and I kind of giggled when I started because our busiest season is from December through April with our big AIDS walk every year, which just happens to overlap with the busiest time of the legislature as well. So my team in Topeka is wonderful at taking on as much as they can. I'm great at delegating out that, but it wouldn't be possible with AIDS Service Foundation without our incredible board of directors that are all volunteers and the 200 volunteers it takes to put on AIDS Walk every year as well.
Well, I do want to circle back to the legislature and the foundation, but let's introduce our audience. Give us an in-depth look at the Service Foundation. It's an interesting model how everything works.
Yeah, so in 1993, we had a couple of organizations at the height of the HIV and AIDS epidemic that came together that wanted to create a collaborative fundraising operation. That way, the Good Samaritan Project, Casey Free at the time, which is now Casey Care Health Center, and Save Inc., and another organization came together to then say, okay, instead of us all going out and trying to fundraise from these different entities and make 4 different asks, let's have one comprehensive ask, which was the birth of the AIDS Service Foundation. Fast forward all these years later, Michael Lenticum was our former director of development and event producer who did this job for 30 years. And
my gosh.
When they reached out to me, I knew that I had very, very big shoes to fill. And Michael, in his own way, said, then go buy new shoes. Mine are, let's go try. And so the AIDS Service Foundation began out of the need for raising critical funds to treat and help serve those folks that are living with HIV. Fast forward to today, where now we have around 6,000 people in the metro living with HIV. We are able to expand the support we do, not only for our primary care organization or primary recipients, which are now Saving Hope Care Center and Casey Care Health Center, but also expand that out to other local nonprofits with community grants. We have an incredible education and outreach committee who takes in those grant applications, considers the impact, and sees how they overline with our mission. And we've had everything from artists helping the homeless, where they're able to do HIV testing while folks are doing their art projects. We've funded the Kansas City, Kansas Planned Parenthood Great Plains HIV testing screening program for folks that are uninsured or underinsured. And so we really had a couple of years ago, the Black Archives, we funded a project to really show the history of HIV in Kansas City. And so it's kind of anything in around education, awareness, housing, and really that whole person approach to supporting organizations that are making sure that people have access to a home. You can't be healthy without access to healthcare as well, and a lot of education and outreach. So being around the community as much as we can to make sure that people realize the state of HIV in Kansas City, the resources to make sure that they're getting tested at least once a year, and really just making an impact and helping people realize that this is still an issue. We've had some folks that say, "Oh, the AIDS crisis is over," and yet we still have people with all the access to preventable medication like PrEP, or if you have been exposed, post-exposure prophylaxis or PEP, started within 72 hours can prevent a transmission. And so we're still working.
Wow.
The statistics show that there are about 1,000 people in the greater KC metro area that are currently living with HIV and do not know their status. And so we're actually at a place where we can truly eradicate this virus by getting people tested on treatment. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that if you are HIV positive and start your antiretrovirals, they can actually get you to a place of being undetectable. And undetectable means it's untransmittable. There's not been a single case in the world where someone that was undetectable transmitted the virus. And so we can get those folks tested, treated, and get to undetectable so we can prevent future transmissions. And so not only are we there to serve the people who are living with HIV, but we're looking for a future where new HIV transmissions are incredibly rare.
Which compared to the rest of the world is amazing. As you know, and I don't know that our audience does, that transmissions outside of the United States are just huge, but there seem to be such inroads here, and thanks to the fundraising and support you do. So can you talk about your major recipients and kind of how that dance goes and what they're doing in the community?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting model. And we have each of the organizations, so Save Inc., Hope Care Center, and Casey Care Health Center, all have their own board of directors, and yet they all get to choose two of their board of directors who are voting members on the board of the AIDS Service Foundation.
Oh.
Hope Care Center is one of the only remaining skilled nursing facilities specifically for individuals with late stage HIV or AIDS. And they're almost entirely Medicare funded. So if someone is HIV positive and they have progressed to late stage HIV or AIDS, then they qualify for Medicare, and that's how most of the funding model works there. We provide unrestricted support. So just a couple of years ago, we worked with Derek Bachman, at the time was their board president, on a $50,000 investment. What they were able to do was rip up the carpet and put in new flooring. They were able to, many of the residents there are in wheelchairs, and they had a door that their clients were truly just pushing up to the door and pushing the door open to get outside. We were able to, through that, they were able to install an automatic door that people can get in and out, an ADA accessible ramp so that folks have a much safer chance to get outside, and make some other upgrades as well. So that unrestricted support is really important to them. Casey Care Health Center, who started as Casey Free Health Clinic, and people were able to, regardless of whether they had insurance or underinsured or self-pay, were able to go and seek care throughout the early part of the pandemic. Fast forward to today, they just completed a $10 million capital campaign, which has allowed them to completely renovate their Midtown campus, everything from the addition of the pharmacy and some of their clinical space next door, just to the north of their building on 35th and Main, and Broadway, sorry. And I should know that I worked there for a year. But they were also able to add dental and radiation as well. So people can get diagnostic imaging right there, where before they'd have to refer patients to go get x-rays. They'd have to refer them to go get mammograms. They're truly now a one-stop shop, fully fledged health center, and a federally qualified health center, which also has a 340B pharmacy program, which allows them to provide medications to people at a much lower cost so that it's more affordable and makes it more accessible for them to adhere to their medical what they need. And then Save Inc. is our housing shelter in Kansas City. We specifically have over the years funded what was Pride Haven, which was the transitional youth LGBT housing center that has now been called Teresa's Place. And so I imagine with the unrestricted support, they'll continue funding that in the future and making sure that, folks in the Kansas City area that are in transitional youth, and we're seeing a disproportionate percentage of our transitional youth that are unhoused are LGBTQ. And so even in the year 2026, people are telling their families who they are, who they love, and unfortunately are not welcome in the home. And so I'm glad that we have for them to turn to and have housing, because we've seen a lot of LGBTQ youth and just folks in general who, because they are unhoused, have to turn to pretty drastic measures to be able to survive. And so making sure they have access to a home keeps them off of, from substance use or other things like that. And so really mitigating that risk for not exposing them to HIV where we can prevent that.
This model is so fascinating. Do you know of any other entity really in Kansas City that has this kind of a setup?
No, and we've truly evolved over the years, and so as those organizations have continued to grow, Casey Care. Well, while I know that they appreciate our contribution each year, they've grown into this huge operation, and they have an incredible team of grant writers and development folks who really have expanded the opportunity for them. They've really gotten in the space of clinical research trials as well, which provides to offset some of the costs of what they do. Of course, plenty of patients that are fully insured help cover the cost of what they're doing every day. So they've grown. And so I think at the same time, AIDS Service Foundation's board is also looking at how we modernize what we're doing. If we look to places like Tulsa, where their AIDS Foundation has rebranded is now called Tulsa Cares, instead of each of the organizations having their own, Casey Care has a big brunch or gala each year, and Save Inc. has their big event. And Hope Care Center is always happy to do some community things to raise some funds as well. We've looked at places like Dallas and Houston and San Francisco and Nashville even, where they've really consolidated that to just have one big, huge event each year. And so we're early in the discussion, but looking at things that we could do to really go back to our initial mission of we get to be this organization that builds these super fun party events that people want to come to. Just last year, I think Tulsa Cares raised over $1.5 million. Nashville Cares is very similar, and they're, pretty similar in size and scope to what we do. And so we're looking at how not only we can take what worked for the last, this year upcoming is our 38th annual AIDS Walk, and seeing what has worked, but also looking at what did the next 38 years look like for us as well.
Wow, how smart and savvy of you and your board to take a look and see about evolving. And how do you evolve, and how does it keep doing the great things that you do? We're talking to Brandon Woodard. He is the Director of Development of the AIDS Service Foundation here in Kansas City. All right, so you mentioned the AIDS Walk. Let's talk about that and give folks kind of a snapshot if they're not familiar with it. And then we can talk about how do you pull that together with a small team.
Yes. Well, we like to say that AIDS Walk for us is a season, not just one event. And so we have launched into our AIDS Walk season. We just actually, I think tonight is opening night for one or two different shows here in the community. We're partnering with the Unicorn Theater, who's doing a production, the American premiere of a production called Casey and Diana. It's about Princess Diana's visit in Canada in the 90s to the Casey Hospice House, and visited with AIDS patients, and was one of the first to make it really focus on destigmatizing and hugging and shaking the hands of those patients. The White Theater at the Jewish Community Center is partnering with the Casey Melting Pot Theater, and they're doing a production of Rent. And so both of these are so timely. They're so similar to both telling our history, but also celebrating how far we've come. And so both of those organizations are collecting contributions at the end of each show that will benefit AIDS Walk in 2026, which we're really, really excited about. Next week, we have our AIDS Walk night at the J on Thursday, and then we have our AIDS Walk night on Friday at the Unicorn. So their production is going to be really fun for a few weeks. We're really excited. In addition to that, we are planning right now for our AIDS Walk Open, which is our annual mini golf putt-putt bar crawl throughout Westport and the surrounds. We partner with 14 different bars and restaurants. That event last year raised us over $35,000 for our people getting a team of 4 together, dressing up in a silly costume and going around and putt-putting around Westport for a good cause. And we always have an after party. The players get to vote for which bar or restaurant has the best putt-putt hole. And then the winner gets to host our after party the next year. So this year, we're really looking forward to that event. And then, of course, the huge one is our annual AIDS Walk. So this is the 38th annual AIDS Walk. It'll be at Tice Park on Saturday, April 25th. Registration starts at 8 a.m. Our program begins at 9 a.m. on the main stage, and 10 a.m. we walk. And that every year, we are one of the few remaining AIDS Walks in the country that's still successful and profitable in a way that we are able to raise those funds and give them right back to those organizations we've talked about. We have over 1,500 walkers that showed up last year in the cold and dreary weather, but that takes a whole army of individuals. We've got folks on our steering committee for AIDS Walk who have been involved with this from day one, and we have a lot of folks that are coming in for their first or second year as our volunteer steering committee board, focusing on everything from the logistics of how do you make sure that the route is safe, how are we working with public safety to close off the streets so that 1,500 people can walk from Tice Park through our AIDS Walk route, and to our memorial program, which honors the folks that we've lost to HIV and AIDS over the years. We have 100 and I think around 70 banners now that we take out on the walk the streets with us. The white flags represent the folks that we've lost to HIV and AIDS, and our red banners honor the folks that have been alongside us in this fight, but we've lost over the years as well. And so the memorial program is wonderful. They have a tent that they focus on, little tributes to the people that they've lost, keeping their legacies alive. And I really love, we've partnered with that team and the Arts Asylum, where A to Z Storage has allowed us to store the banners inside. We used to have to roll them up each year. They would go into our storage unit, and then we'd have to, our amazing volunteers would then iron them, steam them, make sure that everything good to go. And now it's really kind of touching that we're able to get them ready. They're all there in a closed, climate controlled facility, and we're able to still, we're sorting them out. And it's like, do you have Kip? I've got Kip right here. Let's do this. And so we're able to still work with their families and honor their legacy as well. And then Anthony Edwards, our incredible former board secretary, who is the musical director of basically everything in Kansas City. He always runs our run of show on the stage. And so we partner with amazing local talent to honor what we're doing. They always sing a memorial song and have some fun stuff. Last year, we had folks from Dance Fit Flow in the Crossroads come do a stretch routine to get everyone fired up and ready to go out and walk a couple miles. And so we're really looking forward to it. And it takes truly not only our volunteer steering committee, but almost 200 volunteers day of to make sure the route is going well, make sure people are happy, that they are getting to the tents if they're sponsors on time and all that sort of stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a long week for us. We start setting up on
I'll bet.
Thursday. The stage is up. The tents are up by Friday. We're getting inspected by the fire marshal, making sure everything's good to go. And then rain or shine, we show up at 4 a.m. to get everything ready for that 8 a.m. registration.
Gosh.
And by 11:30 a.m., the stage is struck. It's like the event never happened. So we're really excited to continue spreading the message and awareness about the work that we're doing. And really excited that we are able to still celebrate 38 years later, the work that the AIDS Service Foundation continues to do.
Where can people go to get information if they'd like to participate, sponsor, underwrite?
Yes, well, we would welcome that from anyone. If they want to volunteer, get involved, they can go to www.asfkc.org. If they would like to register for AIDS Walk or register a team, or get more involved as a volunteer or join our steering committee, they can go to www.aidswalkkansascity.org.
Perfect. Everybody has where they need to go. So I hope you all wrote that down and remember, you had said you're one of the few AIDS walks still really around the country. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of those organizations that have shifted to different types of fundraising events. I don't necessarily see a future where we don't have an AIDS walk in Kansas City as people
Mhm.
still show up. And it's, I think, a great opportunity for us to really get out there and whether it's AIDS Walk Open and we're at a bar in Westport and someone says, "Hey, what are y'all up to?" We get to have our volunteers like share information to say, "Hey, we're spreading the word about the importance of getting tested. This is who we are and what we do." And also, we really do a lot of fun things to celebrate that, and to make it happen. And so um, that's a big piece of it.
Well, that turnout is amazing because I know walks tend to ebb and flow. So the fact that you're still going and going strong 38 years doing that. I want to circle back now to wearing your double hats. How has being a lawmaker helped you in doing the work that you're doing with the nonprofit?
That's a great question. This is my eighth year in the legislature, and I think my 12th year working in nonprofit world. And so I've learned to balance both my time back at KU Endowment and then Casey Care Health Center and now at AIDS Service Foundation. I think it's helped me be a better lawmaker because I see the unique needs of the organizations that are doing the work on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few years ago, we had the Kansas Department of Health and Environment came before the Appropriations Committee, the Budget Committee that I was on, and they were in a crisis of just they truly didn't have enough HIV testing supplies. And you always have to be on your feet because there's always someone on that committee that's trying to either they limit spending or they have a project they want instead, or they just don't want to fund certain things. And it was really powerful because I was able to take what would have failed, which was only about $150,000 in state dollars, I believe, is what they were requesting. And because I was able to have the statistics from Kansas City, but also very quickly look up the data, I was able to work with the committee to say, hey, this is why it's important. This is the statistics of who is making up the new transmissions of HIV in Kansas, and be ready to answer questions. And I was surprised that not only did the biggest critic vote in favor of funding it, she thanked me for informing her and bringing her up to speed on where things are at. I think that's the beauty of, both in Missouri and Kansas, we have citizen legislatures. And while that provides its own unique opportunities and challenges for those of us that have to maintain a day job to be able to afford to serve, I think it also makes us more effective lawmakers because we are able to be on the ground, be grounded in reality, and talk with folks every day about the impact of the laws that we're making. And so I think it's made me more effective in the fact that I get to visit with folks every day about their unique needs. And on the flip side, it's made me a better development person. Hearing people's stories, being able to share that information with folks who, whether they're high capacity and can write a really big check, or someone who's just inspired by the work we're doing and donating $5 a month, and being able to communicate that impact back to them to say at the end of the year, you gave $5 a month, that was $60. You paid for 1.5 HIV testing things. And if we find out of 10 people, we find one person that has a reactive test and get them on treatment, you've helped us do our part in creating a future where transmissions are rare.
One step at a time, one person at a time, right?
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to flip it back the other way. What's kind of the greatest challenge? Uh, I guess balancing the legislature and your quote day job. And then I have a follow up for you from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part, especially while we're in the legislative session, is the only thing that you can predict in the state house is that nothing is predictable. Um, we had planned for a steering committee meeting this last week, and we had a group of folks who were out sick, and we were debating a bill on the floor that went out until 6 p.m. We started at 11 a.m. on one bill. And I had a couple folks be like, I can't believe they're keeping you here. It's like, no, we're holding the floor, which is very hard for the minority to usually do. But we were able to do that. So it's unpredictable. And so trying to be in a very structured project management brain, as I am in my work with the foundation, you also have to sometimes just realize that some things are out of your power. And sure, this email can't go out right now, but it's going to be okay if it comes out tomorrow. It's going to be okay if we have to move a meeting to Monday, which actually turned out better for everyone, that more people can attend, and we're more excited that it was going to be better weather anyway.
Now, you're the only paid staff person with the Service Foundation, is that right?
Correct. We've got a graphic designer that luckily, because I am not the best at Canva or it's per event, but yes, otherwise I'm the only employee of the foundation.
So how does that work with being the only employee and having a very active board, I'm assuming?
Very active, very amazing. Kimberly Carlson, our immediate past president, she got involved several years ago in the Millennial League, which is where they would go meet monthly and have drinks and happy hour and talk about what they're going to do for the AIDS Service Foundation. Fast forward years later, she was our board president. She was vice president of education and outreach before, who does a lot of our community grants, and now is past president. She, before some of the changes in the federal administration, had been leading the second longest running HIV study in the country.
Wow.
President Carissa Deonda. She is a public health expert. She is a distinguished senior scientist at a pharmaceutical company, and was really involved throughout COVID in the development of her company's COVID pill. And so she got her start in public health and contact tracing during the HIV epidemic's beginning. And so not only do we have an active board, we have folks that are incredibly knowledgeable about this. And my own physician is also does wear two hats in addition to his work as a professor, clinical staff, and academic staff at KU Health. He's also the medical director at Vivint Health Center. And Vivint's only thing that they work on is HIV prevention and treatment. And so we've got folks like that are doing this on the ground every single day, from the academic research side to the provider side. One of our new board members is an HIV specialist nurse. And so we've got really incredible folks who know how important this is and are able to help us communicate that out to the Kansas City community.
Are your board members all local, or do you reach beyond the area for your board?
They're all local. So everything that we raise, every single dollar that is raised by the AIDS Service Foundation goes right back to the Kansas City community. And so we've funded, like I said, the HIV testing at Casey Care, or at Planned Parenthood on the Kansas City, Kansas side. Obviously, the bulk of the work we do is on the Missouri side as well. But all of our board members are local. They care about the work we're doing here and get to see the day-to-day impact with a front row seat.
Well, you're doing amazing work. I don't know how you tap dance in both these worlds. I mean, it just seems crazy to me. It's I'm sure challenging at times, but the organization is so lucky to have you and your youthful energy.
I'm very lucky to work with these really incredible humans that, yes, I'm the paid employee, but they work just as hard as I do.
That's great. Thank you, Brandon, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was a great time.
Thank you for joining us on Casey Cares. We're Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by a nonprofit called Charitable Communications. This Casey Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. If you'd like to be a guest or learn more about us, go to our website, kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at Casey Cares Radio, and on Instagram at Casey Cares Online. And don't forget, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., you can catch us on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on Casey Cares.